welcome to another edition on the SIR for Deccan Herald. It's been 3 weeks since the exercise was rolled out in Karnataka, and as per the official data from Election Commission, 98.96% electoral forms have been delivered to people. However, there are a lot of confusions and doubts amongst people regarding this entire exercise. The confusion starts from how to fill the form, how to map yourself to relatives or yourself from 2002 roll, what are the problems people are facing while filling the online enumeration form, the technical glitches, and many things like this. And these facts are actually even more difficult for people from weaker sections of the society. So what are Karnataka's major political parties doing to try and help voters mitigate this problem? To discuss more on this, we have Shathabish Shivanna, spokesperson from the Congress, and Surabhi Hodigere, a spokesperson of the BJP. Welcome to the show. We also have Aishwarya Ravikumar, an activist for My Vote, My Right campaign, who has been working relentlessly on the ground and trying to help citizens tackle with these issues. Welcome, Aishwarya. So Aishwarya, I would want to begin the conversation with you. Since you have been working amongst people and trying to know what exact problems they have, what is the single major concern that has come to your notice from people? What are their major fears regarding this exercise, and where exactly are they finding technical problems while enumerating the forms?
Yes, the dangerous assumption is that because 29 June enumeration phase started, we think that once the forms are collected, the SIR is over and the major part of the work is over. But people on the ground, ordinary people who are facing difficulties filling their forms, are already asking the questions that, will I have a place in this country or not? In a help desk that we had, for instance, for just sex workers who wanted to bring their enumeration forms, they have very unique challenges filling the form because of being unable to trace the 2002 details. Once we ended up somehow finding a relative's name on the 2002 list, her first reaction was, thank God, I will not be sent out of this country. So that very real fear exists. The second thing is that, will I lose my ration card? Will I lose the rights, the other rights I have as a citizen? So yes, everybody is aware that their name will be deleted from the voter list. But the way ordinary people are articulating it is, what am I to this country if my name is deleted from the voter list? How does the country see me if my name is deleted? That is something that we are already beginning to see, that I am a beneficiary of this scheme, we get ration, we get this much, this is what we rely on for survival. I also want to just preface what I'm saying with the fact that almost 99% of our interventions has been in slums and working class localities. So these are people who are already living in quite precarious working conditions and living conditions. Not people who would have the same address since 2002, not people who would have perfect documentation in English or Kannada. This is a range of slums across Bangalore. In these first few weeks of the enumeration phase, some of the issues that we are seeing on the ground is that the design of the enumeration phase assumes a couple of things, and I want to say that as a disclaimer. One is that everybody has the digital literacy or the literacy to have the know-how on how to fill their form and how to navigate the ECI website. That is simply not true. People do not know that we have to look at 2002 lists. So many people who have their forms filled by any other group or any other, even sometimes incorrectly officials, BLOs, they come with us with their forms with incorrect details of 2025 list filled in the mapping section. So it's not that everybody has the know-how. That is a dangerous assumption. Second thing is, the documents are perfect, right? That's the assumption, that your documents of 2002 and 2025, your name, your relatives' names, your relations, everything is everything matches perfectly. We have seen date of births that are mismatched. We have seen ages that are mismatched. We have seen relatives' names. Husband is named as father. Grandfather is named as father. We have seen all kinds of these kind of discrepancies. So that is the second thing. And the third thing is that everybody has perfect relations with their families, relationships with their families, that they can pick up their phone and call their parents or grandparents and ask, can you tell which booth, or can you give me your BLO's number so that we can figure out the mapping. That's simply not true. We work with the transgender community, we work with various communities where we have seen people who have had intercaste, interfaith marriages and who are shunned. We have seen LGBTQ people who are shunned. Either they are shunned or they've run away from home simply because of the risk. And we've already seen what honor killings mean in our state. So that is the third dangerous assumption. Looking at these things in our help desks, we have seen a number of issues that have come up. One main example is women of all castes, all religions are going to get affected in a very big way, because for men, you're still staying with your parents' house, you're still in the same, even if you're not in the same address, it's simpler to trace the details. For women who migrate for marriage, either from a different booth or a district or a different state, we have to end up making sure they figure out how to contact. If they're alive, we contact and we try and retrieve that. So that is one main issue. The second is Dalit, Adivasi communities, Dalit communities and other low literate, low income communities that we've seen, with a lot of discrepancies in their records, with absolute, where were you in 2002? I don't know, ma'am. I've been migrating. Where were your parents in 2002? Who knows, ma'am? We were so small when they died. I mean, it's a very common answer for people to not know whether it's because they've been migrating so frequently, whether it is simply because they're living in that kind of precarious conditions. Like the Adivasi workers, coffee plantation workers in Kodagu and Mysore. They migrate from one plantation to another every few years. Their documents are in the custody of their plantation owners and employers. So Adivasi Sangharsh Morcha and My Vote My Right did a large scale survey. So similarly, here in slums we have seen fire and demolitions and floods are very common for slums to witness, where documents have been destroyed, so they don't have records. Largely these, I'll just say one thing to sum up the kind of experiences. The enumeration phase is just the form filling, and if you're unmapped or if there are discrepancies, your right to vote is still, the right is still in suspension until the final list comes out. And what happens before then? The notices come, the lists come out, and you have to file claims and objections. The assumption is everybody has at least one of the 11 documents. That is simply not true, and we are seeing already lakhs of people who will be inevitably deleted because they don't have these documents.
Okay. Before I move on to the others, I want to ask you another question. When you refer to the unique problems of either the sex workers community or the transgender persons, can you explain a little bit in detail as to what exactly are their problems in getting those documents, sure, as well as problems related to their names, sure, change in names and things like that?
Sure.
Something that has come to your attention?
Yeah, sure. One, like I said, they are no longer in touch with their family, most of them. Many families that have accepted that, okay, my child is transgender, my child is gay, lesbian, that's a different story. But I'm talking about the majority, where we've seen them having left homes or being thrown out. In fact, many trans people who come from very poor areas in rural Karnataka say that they tear their school certificate, their documentation is destroyed, and then they are kicked out. So that is common. So when we look at filling the enumeration form, the first half, which requires you to either list your details from the 2002 voter list or your parents or grandparents, it's going to be difficult. People who have transitioned between 2002 and now, who have a different name, either now they have the TG card and have avail benefits as a transgender person, or who have changed their name because they are non-binary now, LGBTQ community as such. Their name in the voter roll in 2002 will appear differently from what their name is now. And out of the 11 documents plus Aadhaar that SIR is allowing or accepting, the TG card is not one of them. The TG card is also issued after a full due process of affidavit and gazette publication. It's not something that anyone can fake it. So even that is not going to be accepted. So that is one example. For sex workers, it is completely different. It's taboo. Their families so many at times don't know that they engage in sex work. They change their names. Even after leaving their home and changing their names, they change their names every few years if they feel they're under risk of, being located by family members. Even with us, we work a lot with the sex workers group. Their names are always kept anonymous. We still sometimes don't even know what their official or what the name they were born with was. Only now when we were looking for their records, these questions came up. So for them, again, it's going to be an issue of linking to relatives and the mapping. That's the main issue that everyone will face. That's why my main point is that the enumeration form is only step 0, because the SIR is designed in a way that if you can't do this, you can only show one of 11 documents. And the assumption is that all people have their one or two of the 11 documents reflecting correct name, correct gender, correct name of father, correct date of birth, and it's, where is that opportunity going to be given in the SIR for them to say that no, I am a citizen if my document is not sufficient.
Okay. Mr. Shivanna, I want to come to you and basically speak a little more in detail about the problems which people are facing specifically related to the electoral form. So one thing we have observed extensively is that especially when it comes to the mapping section, for those of us who are not in the 2002 roll, there is a lot of confusion as to whom you will map yourself to, whose name will you mention there, what will be the relation and things like this. So from the Congress party, what sort of efforts are being taken to ensure that all the doubts of the voters are cleared, and in what way are the BLAs being trained by the party to facilitate voters?
So before I address that specific question, I feel that conducting the special intensive revision is very different from the SSR. It is a very complex and comprehensive exercise undertaken by the Election Commission of India, and I feel they have failed on all counts, on all ground realities. They were short-sighted. They did not envision the probable obstacles that they may face. So in this context, they are acting as an extended arm of a political party to, further the interests of a political party rather than working as an independent constitutional authority. Long gone are those days when people like T. N. Sheshan were at the helm of affairs and they said, this is the Election Commission of India, not the Election Commission of the Government of India. Therefore, there are primary issues of influence and arbitrariness exercised by the present government on the Election Commission. Secondly, the problems that we have with the Election Commission is broadly into 3 aspects. One is with respect to the lack of training, right? The numbers give me goosebumps. We are mapping 5.5 crore people and ensuring that they undergo this exercise in Karnataka. And the BLOs that have been deployed for this purpose is just 56,000, right? And they are required to visit each and every single household at least 3 times. And before the enumeration process started, the number of unmapped citizens were running into 46-47 lakhs. These numbers are staggering, right? And the basic thing that you are required to do is train your BLOs. The training program for the BLOs was supposed to commence from June 1st to July 1st. The enumeration would then begin from July 1st. But as per media reports, the training only commenced on June 20th. So these people have absolutely zero clarity on what they are required to do on the ground. They are required to educate the citizens. They are required to educate the party workers as well, whoever we deploy as BLAs. But they seem to be confused about the entire issue. And second, with respect to the timeline, 1 month, is it enough? These are aspects that the Election Commission of India ought to have thought of beforehand. And thirdly, the appeal mechanism. This is very, very crucial and very important. Insofar as the Congress party is concerned, we ensured that we were aware of what is going to happen. We had seen the exercise in Bihar. We had seen what the issues were in Bengal. Therefore, what we did at a very initial stage under the chairmanship of Shri D.K. Shivakumar was to conduct Jana Jagrati Samaveshas. We energized our party workers. We conducted training programs across all 34, 32 districts, and we ensured that they assist the Election Commission of India. See, the Congress party's position is simple. We want clean electoral rolls, but also at the same time, we don't want you to clean out genuine voters. Therefore, our party workers are going door to door along with the BLOs. They are ensuring that they are filling the enumeration forms correctly, and in the event that they require one of the 11 documents that Madam was just mentioning about, if there is any assistance that can be provided by the state government, we are ensuring that we give citizens access to the state government, and we create these documents for them, right? When obviously in accordance with law. Therefore, there are multiple issues that we are facing with respect to transparency, with respect to on-ground technical know-how, and with respect to various other issues. But the Congress party at the moment is energized. We have the highest number of BLAs that have been appointed, deputed, trained to carry out these activities. One important issue that I would like to address is the appeal mechanism. How do you address it? How many, like if there's a glaring and sterling example of West Bengal in front of us. About 27 lakh voters were declared ineligible just few days before the election. There was an adjudicating authority. They have a sanction in law. But how many appeals or applications were disposed of? It doesn't even cross 1,000. So this is very crucial. We are trying to make representations to the Election Commission on a repeated basis. We have raised 12 important questions that I will highlight probably later. We have written to them repeatedly from the party front. We have written to them through the Chief Secretary of the Government of Karnataka, and what we are receiving is radio silence. There are many self-help groups, many RTI applicants who are writing to the, or probably news channels, who are approaching the Election Commission, who are going to the Chief Electoral Officer and are stating that, listen, we have these specific problems. You need to give us a probable written manual, because nothing is written. And they don't even address you. They don't even respond, either written or orally. It is not seen.
Okay. We'll come to that again about the specific problems you have. Surabhi ma'am, I want to ask you, how is the BJP looking at this exercise in Karnataka, the way it is rolling out? Because obviously BJP has also had its own concerns which has been raised to the Chief Electoral Officer Karnataka. What are your major concerns, and how are you, first of all, are you facing any problems on the ground? Do you feel people need some clarity on a lot of issues? Do you feel BLOs and BLAs are trained adequately? And in what way is the BJP trying to help its voters?
Thank you for that. I think first and foremost, I want to say that having had conversations with multiple BLAs and also interacted with BLOs, particularly in Bengaluru, the work that they're doing, the enormous pressure that's being put on them, we really must commend the kind of effort that is going into it. Discrepancies I will come to, but that first level of acknowledgement that they are on the ground doing this exercise. Many women who have also conveyed to me that the lack of being treated well when they go to a particular house, a lack of access to toilets, the lack of thought process as to whether a BLO should be put in their home constituency or a home district or somewhere else. All of these issues are causing very real issues on ground and trouble on ground. Having said that, I want to ground my comments on the very purpose of undertaking this SIR exercise. I've heard from both my co-panelists, and I think it's important for us to remember that while the SIR exercise, we are in the midst of it, and therefore the very pressing concerns, confusions are very visible in front of us. The idea was to ensure that we have clean voter rolls, something that the Congress party here in Karnataka as well as nationally has raised through multiple press conferences, taken examples of constituencies in Karnataka, in Bengaluru, and mentioned how there are multiple people staying in one house, which voters registered on the same address, which is not feasible. There has been a lot of discussion that has happened both in border states as well as states elsewhere, that there are not clean voter rolls. And Bengaluru faces very similar challenges because of a huge migrant population that comes to work here. So therefore, the necessity was always to have clean voter rolls. I also want to mention that while the conversation on deceased persons, persons who have shifted, persons who are maybe voting in two different places, these are no longer hearsay. We have evidence of the same. There is also the concern that a huge population of persons who are not Indian citizens might have access to be on part of the voter roll. The SIR exercise is not done or is not intended to take away anybody's rightful place in the country. It is done to ensure that those who are not part of citizens of this country do not have place in the voter roll. Just as much as the concern voiced that there is a real fear that if my name is not on the voter roll, do I not be a part of this, where is my place in the country? There is also the similar fear that are there people who are not from this country, who are not citizens of country, who have found their names in the voter roll. And there have been recent incidents in the last couple of days, in the last 1 month, where Karnataka government has taken action. The SP in Bengaluru rural had to reprimand a junior inspector for taking money from an illegal Bangladeshi. There was a case in Mangaluru where 3 people were arrested. So I'm not talking about hearsay, I'm talking about real facts that the government has also conceded to. Having said that, the real concerns on ground are plenty and many. There was a conversation that it was only the ECI's responsibility. In policy, in public policy, the responsibility of implementing in administration lies significantly also with local administration. The ECI's guidelines, the ECI's directives, the ECI's prior experience are only a benchmark. But what gets implemented on ground significantly has the state governments go ahead with it. And also, I'm not saying that it is entirely the state government, but the state government has a role. That role is also in doing district level training, in ensuring that the right number of persons are allocated according to the population. It also has to have a clear feedback mechanism. If you've seen the last 1 month, whether it was the fact of SIR will be linked to welfare schemes, or whether it was about we will issue PRC for in Karnataka, all of that was done in haste. It was said 1 or 2 days before. There was not adequate planning, and it also led to a lot of confusion. Now, those confusions are very, very visible on ground. People don't know if they can map to their uncle, aunt. People don't know. First it was told that yes, you can map to relatives, far off relatives. Then the clarification came saying that no, it has to be father, mother. Communication definitely and directives has been a challenge, caused a lot of confusion. BLOs are not trained to be dynamic in these situations. Let's remember also that the BLOs are employees who have to do their day job and also additionally are under pressure to do 150 enumeration forms, give out enumeration forms, ensure it's collected back on a day-to-day basis. So the pressure that comes with that, what happens is that pressure pushes for all shortcuts. And one of the big issues that we have raised, the Bharatiya Janata Party raised, is en masse enrollment forms, enumeration forms being given out. The whole purpose of the SIR was to go house to house, door to door, and ensure that that is done in a thorough manner. Whereas if enumeration forms are given out in community halls and in en masse, the process in itself gets diluted. But what our party has been able to do, we have done multiple representations to the ECI. We have gone to the ECI. We've also raised these as a political party. We've also raised it from a political front. We have also, just as we have had BLA2 training programs, both at the Jilla level as well as the Mandal level, constituency level. We've ensured that we are in direct contact and direct touch with our BLAs in all the constituencies where we have a sitting legislator. And sometimes we've also had to ask for external help, ask for volunteers to come in, ensure that Karyakartas who are not BLA2s also kind of given manpower. The BLA2s are facing a very significant issue, which is that lack of clear directives from the ECI as well as the state government is leading to confusion and the lack of awareness amongst the BLOs on what to do, what not to do means that the BLAs are doing the heavy lifting. In my own constituency, in where I live, I've had the opportunity to speak to my own BLA, who has told me that the BLOs sometimes are under so much pressure that filling the form, from sitting down, filling the form, having looking at the 2002 list, all of that it takes a significant amount of time, right? And when you put a 150 enumeration forms per day target, they're always rushing and trying to cut corners. So that is a real issue that is happening on ground. I think the onus of correcting this, yes, this is a nationwide exercise. Every state has employed different ways, whether it is through the Department of Information, ways to ensure that people are aware about the processes, about the needs of doing it. A simple YouTube video, for example, goes a long way. All of these things could have been done better. A lot more planning could have been put in place. And yes, we do need to have more responsiveness from the ECI. We have had multiple representations. We have received some feedback, especially with respect to the mass enumeration. We've had a representation, and then it was clarified that this won't happen. But the same process also goes on ground right now. So a gist of everything is that it need to have been done better for sure, for everybody's benefit.
Madam, I agree with you totally that at the end of this exercise, we need to ensure that nobody who is ineligible to vote gets to vote. But having said that, another question that comes up is, at the end of the exercise, are people who are foreign nationals actually being identified? Because if that number is not properly visible, which hasn't been in many states, then what is the basis to exclude certain voters from voting, number one. And number two, since the assumption for many decades has been that everyone residing in India are Indians, what was the statistical premise on which this entire exercise was carried out? Was there any data to start with as to say, okay, these are the suspected nationals and this is the action that has been taken up against election commission officers for having allowed them to be on the electoral list? Has there been any such data on your side?
Thank you for that question. It's a very important question. I think if we had a direct answer, which is the data of the number of persons who are illegal and therefore have found their way on the voter roll, action would have been swifter. There are countrywide, there are state governments that have raised concern. In Karnataka itself, the Home Minister gave us a clarity on a few hundred people who were identified. That process, if it was straightforward and smooth, or if that information is accessible to us in that way, of course it would have been a more swifter exercise. But here we are asking, not just as the Bharatiya Janata Party, we are looking at a complex problem. Nobody who has come to the country, whether it is due to economic reasons or any other reasons, will identify and say, I have come to this country illegally. It is a process that the Home Ministry has been very serious about, in rooting out and identifying and ensuring that proper processes are put in place. But it is a collaborative process that can happen. On ground, the state government has to facilitate. On ground, and the state government has acknowledged, accepted many times as well. But if it were a straightforward answer, and this is I would like to talk the points raised by Aishwarya on many communities who are facing very real difficulties with respect to documentation, and therefore the fear comes in when the narrative is that we are attempting to remove people who are not citizens of India from the voter roll. A real fear sets in, right? But what I can say is that the process is not something we can bypass, unfortunately. The role of the state, and I don't mean state or central government, I mean the role of the state is to ensure that we put in checks and balances to allow for genuine cases to have discussion and ensure that they are truly on the voter roll. That is the role of the state. But we cannot remove the process because the problem in front of us is complex. The problem in front of us is definitely a problem. Yes, you are very right in saying that the assumption was that everybody who resided in India is an Indian citizen. That has changed. That assumption has been challenged for multiple reasons. Therefore, and let me tell you, it is not just a 10 or 14-year thing. There are, when Mamata Banerjee was, much before she became Chief Minister of West Bengal, had shown the Bangladeshi voter roll and Bengal's voter roll and said that look at how similar they are, we are having this problem, torn that voter roll and thrown it on the face of the speaker, Somnath Chatterjee at that time. This is a problem we are facing more in border states and now more so in the hinterland. So therefore, I acknowledge that at this point in time, we are dealing with a complex policy problem. But the role of the state, therefore, is to ensure we have checks and balances. The documents, if there was one document, we don't have that process, right? This one document will make you, will ensure that you are part of the voter roll or part of the citizenry. That does not exist. But there are multiple options. So, because these are all the complex issues that are in front of us.
Okay. Mr. Shivanna, you were speaking about how BLAs from your party are helping people navigate this process. Now, one major issue that has been a confusion for everybody across the country has been this issue of logical discrepancy, which was introduced in West Bengal. So, in West Bengal, there were only 4 criteria for logical discrepancy, which we found out later. But there are speculations that in Karnataka, the number could be more, could be as much as 11. So, one issue now connecting to logical discrepancy is that when, of course, BLOs are being they are overburdened, they are working very hard, all of that is true. But since they have not been adequately trained and since there are gaps in how they are guiding people to fill the forms, there is no there is no clarity on whether some mistake on part of the EC or the BLO could then result in somebody being sent a notice because of logical discrepancy. So, how is your party looking at this specific problem of logical discrepancy? And have you written to the Election Commission and have you got any response about this?
We have been writing to the Election Commission on the issue of logical discrepancy from the very beginning, when it started in Bihar, West Bengal as well as Karnataka. If you notice, the SIR that was conducted in Bihar is different from the SIR that is conducted in West Bengal. It is completely different from the SIR that is conducted in Karnataka. There is no uniformity adopted by the Election Commission of India in the first place, right? What is logical discrepancy? The root of the question must be, does it find any specific definition under any law, any enactment or any statute? The answer is no. Today you were saying West Bengal there are 4 enumerators. Tomorrow in Karnataka it could be more. So there is a lack of clarity, there is no uniformity, and it is definitely going to hurt the citizen. And I believe that an eligible voter must not pay for the institutional ambiguity of the Election Commission of India.
Madam, I'll come back to you, sir. Madam, how does the BJP look at the entire logical discrepancy issue, and have you already approached the Election Commission in this regard?
Look, we have been making multiple representations to the Election Commission. Why is there a difference across different states? Different states also have unique problems. The concept of PRC, for example, is very differently understood in West Bengal. In 1999, when the Election Commission has accepted PRC as one of the documents, right? That was specifically towards West Bengal, where in 1999 these PRCs were introduced and were given out because it is a border state. In Bihar, there was a large-scale exercise going in during the time of an election. So that there were differences amongst different states. In Karnataka, the issues are also different. We have a very diverse population. We also have a lot of in Belagavi, the problems are different from what it is in Bengaluru, in a cosmopolitan city like Bengaluru. Our ask from the Election Commission is to keep things as broad as possible, but for the state to use it and apply it as required in the state. But yes, there has to be some guidelines. I think the party's request from the Election Commission is to be more responsive on this front, less on the guidelines being as uniform across the country.
Aishwarya, since you are someone who has also worked outside Bangalore and interacted with various communities in different parts of the state, could you please tell us something about the ground level difficulties which people from marginalized communities are facing, especially in rural areas, and how is it different from their urban counterparts?
In rural areas, there are the process, the implementation of the enumeration phase has been quite different. In rural areas where there is a lot of migration, where there is a lot of, they come back to vote, but throughout the year or in significant parts of the year, they travel to other places for work. In such places, we have already started getting reports of either people who are being unable to even be available to fill the forms, or for people to not being able to remember where they would. But and the problem becomes much more acute when we come to landless communities. Landless communities who are largely working either as tenant farmers, agricultural laborers, daily wage workers, or other forms of informal migrant work. For these people, it is going to be a far more difficult issue to establish two things. One is their link to the 2002 voter roll, which is they've laughed in our faces when we ask them, because how can you ask us who was there then? We don't know where we were. The other thing is the documentation, to expect that everybody in rural areas has that. I've spoken a little bit about the Adivasi issue in Kodagu and Mysore. There are some more instances of communities that have been displaced by infrastructure projects. There are communities that have been evicted from homes. They have lost their land, whether it's when it comes to illegal or massive land acquisition that doesn't follow due process, or other forms of displacement that we've seen communities have encountered. See, we've already seen SIR implemented in 13 states, where we have seen 7.69 crore names of people deleted. Let's say even 30% of this is genuine deletions of duplicate absent people. It's still a significant number of people whose rights are in suspension now. So when we look at, and some of the examples of what communities are facing in rural area, we've already seen communities face that in other states, whether it's thousands of people who have lost like 2-3 villages if they're acquired for a particular land, the land has been acquired. So that kind of, those kind of people will face difficulty establishing, that no, we were here, this is where our families grew up, but then we were displaced. The other kinds of difficulties there are because of low literacy. The pressure on BLOs is immense. Let's say when in Vijayanagara district, where AICCTU trade union is doing some really good work to coordinate and assist BLOs, we are seeing that because communities don't know, a lot of communities don't know how to read and write, but thankfully they've lived in the same village for generations. Their mapping is easy, but nobody can fill a form. So the BLO has to fill, some BLOs are using carbon paper so that it's faster for them. Some BLOs are manually filling in every single thing. And that pressure is immense. We've met at least 7 to 8 BLOs in 2-3 taluks of Vijayanagara district, and it's been immense pressure on BLOs to do that, go home, digitize. So each detail entered in an enumeration form has to be manually entered into the app, then a photo of the form needs to be taken, and then that form is submitted successfully. So that workload we've seen, that is a different type of a challenge.
Do you feel this entire decision by various governments across the country, predominantly BJP ruled states, but even in Karnataka, our own chief minister has also said there will be a linkage between welfare schemes and presence in the electoral roll. Could that then mean that even before there is any sort of authentic decision on citizenship and stuff like that, a lot of people could end up losing their welfare benefits, and that, as Aishwarya pointed out, has emerged as a major concern amongst people. What is your party's official position on this, and is that not controversial?
See, first and foremost, I don't think the SIR can be a citizenship determining exercise. The Supreme Court has clarified, so has the Election Commission of India, but it is a popular misconception amongst the people, and that we must spread awareness to that effect. However, I know your question is rooted as to whether welfare schemes will be attached to finding yourself on the electoral list or not. I think insofar as the Honorable Chief Minister D.K. Shivakumar is concerned, I consider him to be one of the smartest politicians, because his statement was aimed at achieving 3 objectives. One is to ensure mass participation of the people in the SIR process. 2 it is to alert the very same citizens about possible deletions of genuine voters. Thirdly, he was incentivizing the government, he was incentivizing people, keeping in mind the government schemes, and said, listen, there is an exercise that is happening, be aware, be alert, make sure your names and documents, everything is correct, and then you will also be entitled to the government schemes. Therefore, see, these guarantee schemes or any other welfare schemes have its own rules, regulations, and eligibility criteria. And it is those rules and regulations that will determine whether a citizen is eligible for that particular welfare schemes or not. Whether or not they find themselves in this electoral role, whether they find themselves, whether they're able to successfully go through the SIR process or not, will have no bearing whatsoever on the government and welfare schemes. It was an attempt by it was probably the intelligence of the Honorable Chief Minister to ensure that he spreads awareness to the people, to spread, kind of ensure that they participate in this process wholeheartedly and extensively. And since you mentioned the Supreme Court has categorically stated that this is not a citizenship drive or determination exercise. But the Supreme Court has also stated that there must not be institutional interference. There must be due process that is followed. Is that happening? Today, I think all three of us have found common ground, and we have stated that problems exist. There is lack of clarity, there is ambiguity, there is confusion, and probably Surabhi and the BJP in Karnataka are the only BJP faction who are opposing the SIR and who are actually asking real questions that the Congress party and other political opposition parties have been asking the Election Commission of India. Everywhere else, on a national level, they champion the cause. And at no point are we saying that, we must preserve the electoral rolls as it is. It must change. Now, people who are deceased, they must go out. People who have migrated permanently, they must go out. All these aspects must be looked at, but due process must also be followed. And you are saying we are in the midst of the SIR process in Karnataka. So it's difficult to determine how many foreign nationals are there. But the SIR process has concluded in 13 states. We have the numbers, we have the data of West Bengal, we have the data of Bihar. How many of those 27 lakh voters that were deleted arbitrarily in West Bengal are foreign nationals? This is a specific question that the union government must answer. One, not only are they, is it their domain to ensure that these foreigners don't come or don't enter India illegally. Now that they have entered and you have the numbers, what steps have you taken to ensure that these people are sent back? We don't hear any news about this, we don't have any information about this, and when specifically asked to the Election Commission of India, their answer is zero. And just a last thing, Surabhi was mentioning that the state government plays an important role. Yes, the state government deploys our government officials, people who are enrolled under the state government, to carry out the exercise. But the directives, the guidelines, the instruction, the form, everything is on the Election Commission.
Yes.
So if there is any ambiguity, it is for them to clear. And the fact that there exists so much confusion, even in the middle of the process, it only demonstrates their lack of thought and lack of vision.
Okay. Madam, finally, since the BJP in Karnataka has been opposing Chief Minister's statement linking welfare schemes with SIR, however, the same has been carried out in other BJP ruled states. So, what is the BJP's official position on this issue of linking electoral rolls with welfare schemes?
I just want to first start off with saying that issues in the SIR process have been raised across the country by different BJP state units. In Gujarat, where the BJP is in power in itself, there was an extension of the deadline. Many such memorandums were submitted to the ECI. This painting of Election Commission working on the behest of the BJP is a wrong narrative that is being spread, because first and foremost, when the Congress party raised the issues of electoral rolls not being clean, it was the BJP that said that we must do something to rectify this. We have championed the cause of having an SIR across the country. We have taken the opposition along, and it is our responsibility in the state of Karnataka to be exceptionally proactive on this, because we are in opposition. Therefore, across the country, we have raised issues. We have our Karyakartas have been on ground. We have had multiple memorandums both in Bihar and West Bengal and other states. I mentioned example of Gujarat as well. We have been proactive in saying that this process needs to be done right, not that this process ought to be done in a particular way or not. And it is finally voters from across the country who are facing the burden. It is our responsibility to raise issues and concerns irrespective of whether we are in government or in opposition. Having said that, now the conversation on what is the BJP stand with respect to ensuring that everybody has access to be part of the SIR process, that is the reason why there is a BLA identification, there is a BLA training program, there is a BLA constant sort of keeping in touch with our BLA, so that we are also helping the election commission appointed or election commission mandate of conducting the SIR.
Quickly, madam, but what is the official position of the BJP on linking welfare schemes?
Your original question,
Yeah.
I'll come back to that. I think the clarification given on the fact that the Chief Minister himself, almost in a way in any other state, it was a may lose access. In Karnataka, we have seen with Grihalakshmi's database in itself having issues. People being excluded from the Grihalakshmi scheme because of issues in their details or not having, or maybe duplicate voters, duplicate entries, wrong information being given. So the schemes itself have a database problem. And then going on and a Chief Minister coming out and saying almost in a very, equating that if you are not in the voter roll, you will not be in the welfare scheme list is a wrongful move. Technically, nobody can do that. You can be a voter anywhere in India and still access schemes if you are a resident of that
So does that
state.
also apply to other BJP ruled
In
states?
any of the states as well, the clarification it was always a may. It was not a this is going to happen. But in Karnataka, it has been very stringent and straightforward, has been our grouse.
Can I add something?
Yes, please, quickly.
Yes, I think my vote, my right. As a coalition, yes, we have worked on the ground since October, we found out mapping has started in November. But we have also been engaged in an extensive level of political advocacy to talk about our analysis of what the implementation of SIR has been in other states and to raise our concerns in Karnataka. I just want to take 2 minutes because a lot of things have been said, and I think I want to still talk about what the ordinary people of Karnataka are feeling. I'm not talking only about filling in enumeration forms. I'm talking about the process in itself. One is that voter roll revision is not something that we're opposed to. Voter roll revision has a place in the law, it's defined clearly and has to abide by the principles of the constitution. It has been done every 2 years, it's been established practice. But as we are seeing, whether in the 13 states or whether now in phase 3 states, the chaos confusion is not an accident, it is deliberate. We are seeing that there has been purposely, there are some questions that even in press conferences, CEOs are refusing to answer, while they answer they provide some clarity. The third thing I want to say is that we are again not saying non-citizens should be on the voter rolls. What we are saying is that there's already a process. Yes, we cannot remove a process to identify whether a person is a citizen or not, but SIR was the invention of a new process to identify whether a person is a citizen or not. It is not, SIR did not exist before. It was invented, this 11 documents. And now there is a category called others, and this is something that we are really pushing for an answer in a very big way, because in May 2026, after the Supreme Court's direction, ECI said that they are forwarding the name of 12.7 lakh names of voters who were categorized as others. What was the criteria of this categorization? And they were forwarding it to who? The competent authority under Citizenship Act. So that means they could be possibly suspected foreign nationals. How were they identified? What were the criteria? And in Karnataka, they are already being identified as others. So is it the same others as that others? There is no clarity. So this is something that is producing fear, and the entire burden of proof. If a person is suspected to be a non-citizen, the state needs to take action. But if you say that every single human being in the country needs to prove that they are a citizen, you are inverting the burden of proof. And that is our fundamental problem with SIR.
Okay, Aishwarya. On that note, we'll conclude this discussion. I thank all three of you for spending your valuable time with Deccan Herald and giving different perspectives on this SIR issue. Thank you. Keep watching Deccan Herald's YouTube channel for more such insights on the SIR issue.